Hello and welcome to today's English lesson. My name is Stuart. In today's lesson, we're going to be looking at linking phrases that we use for purpose. Let's go to the intro. Now, as I said, today's lesson is looking at linking phrases that we use for purpose. And the linking phrase introduces the subordinate clause. Okay, so the conjunction or linking phrase introduces the subordinate clause in the sentence. So we have the main clause and then we have the subordinate clause that comes after the linking phrase. Okay, now we have 4 different types of linking phrase. Well, actually, we have more because some have 2, but they have the same meaning. And we're going to fill in or complete, let's say, the subordinate clause for these sentences. So the first one that we have here is that she is learning French so that. Right, so here we have our conjunction or our linking phrase. So she's learning French so that, what's the purpose of her learning French? She's learning French so that, okay, she's learning French so that she can live in France. That's the purpose for her learning French, okay? She's learning French so that she can live in France. Okay, the next one. I left a note so that. So here we have our linking phrase, again, so that. Now remember that so that is more common, and in order that, which is the next one that we'll see in a minute, is more formal, but they have the same meaning, okay? So I left a note so that, what was the purpose of the note? I left the note so that my friend would know I had visited, okay? I left the note so that my friend would know I had visited. So we have the main clause, the subordinate clause after the linking phrase. In this sense, so that. The next example, we moved out early in order that. Now remember, in order that, more formal than so that, okay? But the same structure. So we moved out early in order that. So we moved out early in order that the house could be cleaned. That was the purpose of us moving out, okay? We moved out early in order that the house could be cleaned. Now you'll notice that here we're using modal verbs. So it's a common structure after so that, in order that, in this clause here, to use can, would, could, etc. Okay? Modal verbs. So she's learning French so that she can live in France. I left the note so that my friend would know I had visited, and we moved out early in order that the house could be cleaned. Okay? So we have the linking phrase, main clause, subordinate clause. Now the next one, in order to, so as to. Again, so as to, more formal than in order to, but the same meaning. Let's have a look at the sentences here. I went to school early in order to, what was the purpose of me going to school early? I went to school early in order, so I went to school early in order to get my homework done or finished. That was the purpose of me going to school early. I went to school early in order to get my homework done, okay? Again, here the linking phrase, the subordinate clause, the main clause. The next one, they crept about the house so as not to wake the children. Okay, the negative, not, goes in here between as and to. in order not to, so as not to, if we needed to put a negative there. They crept about the house so as not to wake the children, okay? That was the purpose. They didn't want to wake the children, so they crept about the house. They walked quietly, or they crept about the house, okay? They crept about the house so as not to wake the children. So those two examples there with in order to, and the more formal so as to. Now the next one here is lest. Now lest is not common. In fact, you'll probably go your whole lives without hearing this. However, if you're studying for an exam like proficiency or even perhaps advanced, you could see this structure and you'll have to know how to use it. But what lest means is so that not, okay? So that not. Let's have a look at the examples. I locked the gate lest. So I locked the gate lest. I locked the gate lest the dog should escape, okay? Because I didn't want the dog to escape, so that the dog didn't escape. I locked the gate lest the dog should escape. Now you notice here that we're using should, okay? Now we can also use a subjunctive clause. We could say lest the dog escaped, okay? But here we're putting it here with the modal. Lest the dog should escape. The next example, he filled up the car lest. He filled up the car lest he ran out of petrol on the way to work, or on the way to university, or on the way to where he was going. So he filled up the car lest he ran out of petrol, or so that he didn't run out of petrol, okay, or so that he not run out of petrol, let's say, we could say as well. Okay, he filled up the car lest I locked the gate lest, okay, because I didn't want to see the dog escape. I didn't want to run out of petrol, okay? So those were the reasons why. That's the purpose here. Now the next one is for fear of or for fear that, okay? Again, quite formal, not very common. You don't often hear people using this particular structure here or this particular linking phrase, but again, in advanced exams, you might need to know how to use it or how to construct it. So for fear of or for fear that, I didn't tell her the bad news for fear of, okay, for fear of, for fear of upsetting her. I didn't want to upset her. So I didn't tell her the bad news for fear of upsetting her, okay? Because we have the preposition here, we need to use the ing, for fear of upsetting her. And he handles his iPhone with care, okay? He handles his iPhone with care for fear that it will break, okay? For fear that it will break. He handles his iPhone with care for fear that it will break, all right? So we can see that we use for fear of or for fear that, and we change slightly the subordinate clause because of the of or the that, okay? So for fear of upsetting or for fear that it will break. Now, thank you very much for watching the lesson. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the section below. Remember to share the video, please, on social media. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. I'll see you in the next English video lesson. Have a good day. Bye.